Hey, everybody, welcome to the Rock Shop with Ralph, your source for all things entertainment. Tonight, our guest is Nicky Camp. He's a rock club promoter and owner, most recently Blackthorn 51 in Elmhurst, Queens. We're talking about the state of the music business, if you even want to call it the music business anymore, live music business, that is. How you doing, Nicky?
Everything's good, Ralph. What's going on?
Yeah, just hanging out. I want to emphasize um, the state of the live music business, which is pretty much dormant right now. So that's why I wanted to get you on and we wanted to discuss this. Most recently you had Blackthorn 51, which closed down, which we're going to talk about. But your history is pretty much legendary. You were the promoter for the now defunct and legendary Limelight in New York City, among many other clubs.
Correct.
You want to talk about the Limelight, how you originally started and how you got that gig?
I mean, the Limelight was kind of almost accidental. I got a job there as the graphic artist for Limelight. So I had a little office upstairs behind the VIP room, and I was doing all the graphic art for their flyers, for their advertisements, for their posters. And we used to kid around with the owner. We'd say, "Hey, Peter, when are you going to let us do a rock night?" And he would smile, and that would be the end of it. So what I did was a very good friend of mine, an English girl named Frankie Miles. She was very tied into the music industry, but she knew a lot of big people. And I got her a job there as a booker. And she was booking Sunday nights at Limelight. And what they were doing on Sunday nights, anyone that knows the history, back in the old days, Limelight Sunday night was the biggest gay night in New York. You couldn't get a bigger gay night. But like everything, it kind of fizzled out and they were left with nothing on Sunday nights. So she came up with this idea to do a thing called Sunday night, Sundays are for legends. And we were booking the legendary acts of the 60s and the 50s. So we had a lot of blues guys like Muddy Waters and I can't even remember everyone, but all the old blues guys, black guys, white guys, blues guys. And we had, I guess, version 3 of the Mamas and the Papas. We had Herman's Hermits, and we had, what's his name? He did I Put a Spell on You.
That's Catman Crothers. I can't even think of the name right now. I know who you're talking.
Yeah, we had all these acts. But, when you're doing those kind of 50s, 60s acts, you don't always have somebody to put in a room that big. So we had to fill a void. It was probably October or November of 87, somewhere around there. And I was sitting with Frankie and she says, "What are we going to do? We have to have something here." I'm like, "I don't know." I said, "Where's Peter?" She goes, he's in England, because he had 3 Limelights. He had a Chicago Limelight, New York Limelight, and London.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but the Peter that we're talking about is Peter Gation, which yes, I think most people will know that, but Peter Gation is who we're talking about with Peter.
Yes, he was the owner. So I said to her, "Well, what do you want to do?" She goes, "Well, what can we do?" I said, "Why don't we just try something? And if it doesn't work, we'll get fired." So I grabbed Tommy Gunn, who was the promoter and the host of the Cat Club on Wednesdays. And I said, "Tommy, you want to help us out with a Sunday night? We're going to do a rock night." And we called the night Metal Mania Sunday.
I remember.
Not Rock and Roll Church yet. So Tommy came in and he booked 3 local bands. And I forgot who we got to DJ. And we did the night, and we put flyers all over the East Village and the West Village, and it was like $5 to get in. And miraculously, we absolutely packed the place. And well, we had no clue.
You didn't know how big it was going to become.
Yeah, but this was 3 local bands. This was no famous bands.
Right.
So Peter comes back from Europe, and we always had a meeting, and he comes into the meeting. Now, he was a very hard guy to read. You couldn't really tell where he was going. It didn't show a lot of emotions. So he sat there and he kind of, he looks at us and he goes, "So who should I blame for the last Sunday night?" So I looked at her and she looked at me. And at the same time, we both said, blame me. And he said, so I can blame the both of you? And we said, yeah, we're sorry. He goes, well, it was the most successful Sunday night we've had in a year. He goes, can you do it again? And all of a sudden we were like, whoa. So now we were off and running. The director of Limelight was a good friend of mine named Claire O'Connor. And she said to me, the only thing you got to do is you got to change the name, because not everybody's into metal, or even in 1987, not even everybody really understood what metal was. And calling it Metal Mania Sunday kind of puts you in a corner. She goes, can you come up with something more universal? So we sat up in the office, and what we did was we typed out 1 million words, like rock and roll, church, music, band, guitar, everything. We had all these words and we printed them out on a typesetting machine. So we took all the words and we put them on a board, and we started moving them around. Like, on the refrigerator when you move the words around?
Magnets.
Yeah, that's what we did until we came up with something. And someone said, I think Frankie said to me, she goes, wouldn't it be cool if we had a theme like Rock and Roll High School with the Ramones? And I said, well, wait a second. What if we called it Rock and Roll Church instead of Rock and Roll High School? She goes, it's kind of cool. Let's try it out. So we took the words, made it Rock and Roll Church, and basically that was it.
There you go. Are you listening out there, boys and girls? We have the man who came up with the name Rock and Roll Church, which
it was a concerted effort of me and Frankie and Claire signing off on it.
Right, but that's what the Limelight's. Everybody knows the Limelight as the Rock and Roll Church.
I have the first flyer from when it was Metal Mania Sunday. You want me to show it? I can show it.
Sure. This is great. This is history. So while we're waiting, a guy walks into a psychiatrist.
September 27th, 1987.
There you go. There's the flyer. Tommy Gunn presents Metal Mania Sunday. Please sitting pretty, Zan, at the Limelight. There it is. Wow, that's cool.
September 27th, 1987.
Cool. And now I want to bring up one of the legendary bands that played there, which is documented, well documented, was Guns N' Roses. They played there in '88, and Slash always talked about the Limelight gig. That was an acoustic gig that they played there.
Well, it was supposed to be an acoustic gig.
Well, exactly. It was supposed to be an acoustic gig. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened was we started rolling with the rock format, and we were booking legendary artists, New York artists. Now, a lot of the people that listen to your show might be hard rock or metal guys, but if you really
we got everything all over.
If you know New York City rock, most of the legend of New York City was punk rock.
Sure.
There was not that many metal guys. If you want to count Kiss, Kiss was more hard rock. But even Kiss came out of that New York Dolls kind of punk rock thing.
They love the Dolls. They actually were they love. Yeah. We won't get too much into that, but yeah, the Kiss loved the Dolls. Jerry Nolan was best friends with Peter Criss. Right.
So we were doing. We did Johnny Thunders. We did Suicide, which was another New York punk band. We did Kim Simmons from Savoy Brown. We did Dweezil Zappa. We did Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. We did, what's his name from the Dead Boys, Steve Baders. So we were doing a lot of legendary punk guys. And Frankie was now starting to talk to a lot of the Asians. So somehow she was friends with the manager of Guns N' Roses. So she
Alan Niven.
No, it was Dougie Goldstein.
Oh, Doug Goldstein?
Yep.
Back then?
Yeah. So she called Dougie and said, what's the chances of getting them at Limelight? He goes, oh my God. He goes, there's bands at Limelight? She goes, yeah, with me and Nicky Camp are doing the bands now. He's like, oh my God, I got to get them there. Now, but they were already booked to play the Ritz, to do the MTV special live at the Ritz.
Right.
And the owner of the Ritz, who wasn't the nicest guy on the face, this Neil Cohen, he was not a really nice guy. And he made a big stink about it. So we had to make an agreement, even though the Ritz was already sold out. So we couldn't hurt him in any way, shape, or form. And he didn't have the date available. It was Sunday, January 31st, 1988. He didn't have the date available. So he couldn't have done the date, and it couldn't hurt his date, which was 2 days later, because he was sold out. But he still made a beef about it. So we had to make an agreement that we could only do an acoustic set. So we agreed to that. I'm pretty sure we paid them $10,000, but I know
That was my next question, Nick. Damn
I'm
it.
pretty sure it was $10,000.
You know why I'm going to ask you that? Because I remember I was 18 years old, and I remember Slash going and saying, well, we got this gig at the Limelight for $7,500. And I remember him saying that. So I said to myself, if he's saying it's $7,500, it's got to be $15,000.
So I'm pretty sure I would bet the bank it was $10,000.
So $1,988, they got paid 10 grand to play an acoustic. It was supposed to be an acoustic set. And that's pretty good money. I mean,
Well, the story's even better. So we meet with Peter Gation, and he goes, what do we got going on? We would go 4 weeks at a time. And we said, well, we got this band Guns N' Roses. He goes, I never heard of them. And he says, we're paying this band $10,000. He goes, what's the worst that could happen? And we looked at each other and we said, well, the worst that could happen is you could lose money. He goes, all right. He goes, well, if I lose money, he goes, that's it. I said, Peter, they played the Ritz back in November, and they played Lemoore, Brooklyn, back-to-back nights, and they sold both of them out. I said,
Right.
I can't imagine that you would lose money. I said, but I understand your concern. And Peter was a great guy. He let us take chances. He let us do what we wanted to do. And a lot of club owners would never let you do that. So a lot of the success was due to the fact that we had an owner that was willing to let us
run the show the way you wanted to run it.
So we booked them, and they played. They did half the set acoustic, and then they came out and they were like, screw this, with their electric guitars, and they plugged in and they played an electric set.
Wow.
And then the next night they played at CB's Gallery, where they did a really acoustic set, sitting down with acoustic guitars. And then the next night they played the Ritz, MTV live at the Ritz.
Right. And the rest is history.
That's his history.
That's right. Well, you must feel proud that you were a big part of that. I mean, that is a well-documented show from one of the biggest bands, still one of the biggest bands in the world.
Well, keep one thing in mind. They weren't that big yet then.
Right. I'm just saying that they got their start. One of their mainstream gigs was that, because I remember, like I said, I remember him talking about it on the news. We didn't have all these channels and YouTube and all this shit back then. You know that, Nick. And I remember him talking about it. What other bands?
I know that the way they documented it, when Guns N' Roses played that live show at the Ritz, that after that is when they really, really took off. So it was right around then.
Yeah. And then they came, don't forget, Patience came out, was acoustic. So you never know. That could have been maybe one of the reasons why,
Well, their next tour after that, they played Giant Stadium, and they were the opening act for Deep Purple and Aerosmith. And then they did their own show in 1988. They headlined the Felt Forum, which is now the
MSG,
the theater at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
They headlined the Felt Forum, and I went to that show, and my date was Christine Applegate.
Really?
Yeah, from
Married with Children.
Married with Children.
Of course. Wow. So we got some breaking news here. A little bit of entertainment news here that Nicky Camp dated Christina Applegate.
2 dates, all PG rated.
Okay. We can't go to the X. Not even R rated, Nick.
She was 17, man.
Wow. That's good. What are some of the other bands that you remember playing there?
Oh my God, we had everybody.
I mean, I know you had so many. Some of the most notable ones.
We did the first real, true reunion of Kiss in '93. It was supposed to be just, I think, Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, and then Gene and Paul showed up, and they said, "Fuck it, let's go on there and let's jam."
Wow. Is it, what? No, you're talking about the one where Eric and Bruce were there as well,
No,
right? You're
I
talking
don't know.
about.
It's possible. I know it was the first actual time that the four of them had played in a long time, and it was '93.
Wow. I wish I was there for that, because that was like when the rum, because they didn't have the reunion until after 90. They had the acoustic. They did MTV Unplugged, where they did they were actually on camera. That was sort of a reunion. Then they announced the full blown reunion in '96 on the Intrepid when Conan O'Brien announced it.
Yep. And
Yeah.
then we did Pearl Jam. Their first real big headlining gig in New York was at Limelight. And there was a big battle going on from like the Ritz and Ron Delsner. They all wanted Pearl Jam. But the booker came to me and he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "I've been to Limelight on Sundays." He goes, "And you guys are packed every week, no matter what." He goes, "So if I book them in with you, I'm not really taking a chance. So I'm going to give you the booking." And everyone else got pissed off.
Yeah.
So we had them. Then I did Henry Rollins on a Thursday night. It was a special edition Rock and Roll Church. We did what's his name? What Dream Theater? We did Dream Theater on a Thursday night.
Mike Portnoy, James LaBrie, all those guys.
Band. We did Alice in Chains opening up for King's X.
Wow, two great bands. Yeah, Doug Pinnick is still rocking it. Alice in Chains, sadly, they're still around, but they have, obviously, Lane Staley passed away. They have a different singer, and the bass player Mike Starr as well.
And then we did a gig, and the band was unknown, and they were trying to get a record deal. So they flew them into New York specifically to play the Limelight, to do a record company showcase. And Madonna was there because she had that Maverick Records at the time.
I bet you I'm gonna guess the band. Was it Candlebox?
Nope.
Because they were on her label.
Nope, was not Candlebox.
All right, so who was it?
Rage Against the Machine.
Holy shit.
Unsigned band.
Wow, Tom Morello. Wow.
Yep. And we were up standing around that little balcony behind the stage, and then Madonna was standing there. I was up there, a bunch of other people were up there. We did we did everybody, but we did Tool when they first came out. No one knew who they were. We did everybody.
You did so many. Yeah, just to talk about Madonna real quick, that label, Candlebox, was one of the first bands that she signed to her label. They remember they came out with that one album. They were huge. And then, music scene changes, of course. But after, now, when you left the Limelight, you also...
One more good story.
Sure.
So Dougie Goldstein calls me up, and he goes, "Nicky, I need a favor." Now, I would do him any favor because he used to give me Guns N' Roses when they were in town. He said, "Whatever club you're at, I'm sending them over there. Just get me a limousine and you got them for the night." So he says, "I got a new band. I want you to book them once a month and pay them $1,000. I said, "Well, who's the band?" He goes, "You never heard of them, but you got to do me this favor." He goes, "And in 6 months, they're going to be super huge and you won't be able to afford them, but then I'm going to give them to you for $1,000 again."
All right, let's hear what band this is.
I said, "That's a tough one, Dougie." He goes, "Just do me the favor." So I did like 6 months in a row of this band playing once a month. And then their single comes out and they blow up through the roof. Now they're getting 20,000 a night. And he calls me up. He goes, "Well, you can't afford them anymore." I said, "Yeah, I know." He goes, "But I'm giving them to you now for $1,000.
Wow. And what band was it?
Blind Melon.
Oh, shit. Shannon Hoon.
Yep.
Another rock star, another person, and who sang on Guns N' Roses, because Doug Goldstein's the manager, obviously. He sang background on Don't You Cry.
Yep.
Don't Cry for Guns N' Roses, and they had the hit with No Rain, obviously, and then he passed away as well.
Correct.
Melon. That was the video with the Bumblebee girl.
Yep.
Remember the heavy Bumblebee girl?
The little Bumblebee chick.
Right. So we're moving on now, and you leave the Limelight, and some of the other notable music clubs that you ran and promoted. You're talking Don Hills. You're
Well,
talking
I went to Webster Hall right after Limelight.
Webster Hall, right?
And in Webster Hall, we were only there for about 6 months, but we did unbelievable shows there.
Right.
I left Limelight amid some controversy they were making some changes in management because Palladium was closing down. So I wasn't agreeing with the people that were coming in. So I just said, you know what? Let me go this way, you go that way. I went over to Webster Hall, I made a deal. And again, Dougie Goldstein calls me. He goes, Duff McKagan's got a new band and I want you to book them. I said, well, guess what, Doug? I said, I'm not at Limelight no more. He goes, what do you mean? Where are you? I said, I'm at Webster Hall. He goes, wait, he goes, isn't Webster Hall the old Ritz where they did the MTV thing? I said, yeah. He goes, can you book them there? I said, my grand opening is the end of September. How about you do the grand opening? He's like, oh my God, Duff will love this. So we go to Duff and we have a telephone meeting. And I said, Duff, you got to do me a favor. I'll do the gig. I'll book you guys. I'll pay you whatever you want. It has to be a $5 cover because I want everybody there. And I'm going to do a big guest list of all the cool people and all the A-listers that I know. So they agreed to it. We did 3,000 people that night for Duff McKagan. And when he finished his set, at the end for the encore, Slash and Izzy come out and they did whatchamacallit, It's So Easy.
Wow. See that?
Yeah, we did some great shows there, man. We did Vince Neil Band with Steve Stevens.
Yeah, that was when he came out with the Carved in Stone album.
Yep.
You're Invited, But Your Friend Can't Come, Sister of Pain. Wow. Yeah, and so you went, it's Webster Hall, then you did Don Hills, Bond Street Cafe.
Don Hills is way later. Bond Street Cafe was at the Bond Street, Raw, and Limelight were all at the same time.
Right.
So that period from 87 to 93 was all those clubs. So I was doing the 3 clubs at the same exact time.
I can give you a little story about Raw back in the day when I frequented all these clubs.
Sure.
I remember seeing Janie Lane at Raw.
Yeah.
And like, man, that guy could put it away. Totally inebriated, on top of the bar, standing there screaming, singing his ass off. And I'll never forget that. I'm standing like right in front of him. I'm like, this guy's gonna friggin' pass out.
Do you know the story of Warrant being there?
I'm sure you're gonna tell me now.
We were up at Limelight the week before, Sunday night. So their manager comes up and he brings the band. And I said, dude, I got this club in Queens on Friday night. I want to get you guys there. Can we do a promotion? He goes, I can't have you announce anything. I can't have you put it out in print. I said, well, how am I gonna do this? He goes, right. How about you trust me, right? I said, yeah, of course. He says, let me figure something out. I'll call you during the week. So he calls me like on Thursday night. He goes, all right, we're playing in Nassau Coliseum. It's sold out. Send me 3 limousines. I'm going to give you the person to see. Have your guy go down there with the limousines, pick up everyone, and we're going to go back to your club. I said, but how's anyone going to know? He goes, let me figure something out. I said, all right, dude, I trust you. It's all good. They go to Nassau Coliseum. They play their set. At the end of the set, Jenny Lane comes out with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. And he says, how many people want to have a drink with Warrant tonight? Of course, the whole
everybody says sure.
Goes crazy. So he's got a piece of paper. He goes, okay, everyone go to 3817 Bell Boulevard. We're going there and join us for a drink.
There you go.
And my friend Mike, who was the DJ for me, calls me up. He goes, you better get more security. You better call the cops, do something. I said, why? He goes, they just announced it and have sold out Nassau Coliseum for everyone to go to Raw and have a drink with Warrant. Now, we were already pretty packed that night. Well, once that concert let out, about 2,000 people showed up to try to get into Raw, and we couldn't let them in. So the cops had to come and close off the street, and they had to start moving people away. I mean, it was Completely insane.
I remember being inside, and I remember them saying they're not letting any more people in. I remember them saying that. I to this day I still remember. And he was bombed. Oh my
I have a
God.
picture from that night of him with Bobby Brown. Remember Bobby Brown?
Yeah, that was his. He married her. That was
Yeah.
yeah. That was his wife.
Yeah, and she also in the
The cherry pie girl.
but she was in Once Bitten, Twice Shy also.
She was in that. She did a lot of videos, and she was a model. You know, he has a daughter with her.
Yeah. So that's
Wow, those are some great stories. So now we're gonna move on to the most recent club, which is Blackthorn 51. This is a club. If you here's what gets me, Nick, and we're gonna get to the closing and all that stuff. This place, Blackthorn 51, located in Elmhurst, Queens, was the go-to place if you wanted to see any type of hard rock, metal band, hip hop. You had there. You had all kinds. But my forte was the hard rock and metal scene. Okay. Some of the bands that I've seen there, just so to give you the scope of the bands that you're booking there, I saw John Corabi, who was fronted Motley Crue. Everybody should know that.
He played twice.
He played there a couple of times. I saw Frank Hannon from Tesla.
Correct.
Okay. I saw Red Dragon Cartel, which is Jakey Lee's new band. Okay.
They played twice.
Yep. And I saw one of my favorites, Last in Line, which is the Dio band with Andrew Freeman on vocals. And it goes to show you these bands, you're not going to, the state of the music business that we're in now, you're not seeing these bands you're not going to see them at the National Coliseum. You're not going to see them at the Madison Square Garden. I mean, we all hope that they'll get there one day, but to see these bands, you're going to see them on a smaller scale. And this was the place to go to. And you opened up, what was it, 2013?
What we did was the club was called Arena, and an associate of mine had bought into the club. It was a disco, and they weren't doing well. They were going to close. He asked if I could help him. Well, Don Hills had just closed. So I said, okay, I'm doing stuff at Sullivan Hall. I'm doing stuff at Under Acme. I'm doing stuff at Bowery Poetry Club. But yeah, I could come over there. We could do something. So I went over there. I told him, you got to build a stage. You got to build a tech booth. And I took my whole PA out of Don Hills and I brought it over there. And we did shows in 2012 at Arena. But the owners there were in a lot of financial trouble. So I told the landlord, I said, evict them or they're going to come in and take the whole place. So he evicted them, agreed to give it to me. I went and got my liquor license. And then 5 months later, we opened in February of 2013.
13, right. Yeah, and it's a hell of a place to see a show. I mean, I love the place, especially being from Queens. I mean, it was great. It was great. Great place to see a show. So now you open up 2013. Everything's going okay. I mean, when we know it's we're not going to say it's a lucrative business, but you're making a living. You're making a living doing it. And then in March of last year, all hell breaks loose. I know it was March because I'm also a musician. I have a band and I play out. And our last gig was March 13, 2020.
Well, the last day of us open was March 15th. And that night they made the announcement that Monday, March 16th, done.
Now, I mean, how do people react? I mean, I know how I reacted, but how do your fans and how they react to the closing of Blackthorn?
Well, the problem is that no one really knew what was going to happen. We all thought the pandemic was going to be over in 2 weeks. Then it was like, it'll be over in a month. Right. It'll be over in 2 months. It'll be over in 3 months. So everyone was kind of going along with no knowledge of what was going to happen. And then it went 4 months, then it went 5 months, then it went 6 months. And then slowly but surely, places started closing down. And I'm not just talking about clubs. I'm talking about bars, restaurants, stores, any kind of business that was open. And, my landlord, up until that point, he was saying, don't worry about the rent. As soon as it's over, we'll work something out. Then all of a sudden, 8 months in, he says, dude, I can't do this.
Right.
And I said, well, if I go, what do you got? Me going doesn't help you. And he was like, nah, man. He goes, we got to work something out. I said, I can't work anything out with you till I know what's happening. So we just said, all right, well then let's just walk away, because they have a law that New York City made,
Right.
called the law 1932A.
That you don't have to, you can just walk away. You don't have to pay anything.
Right, you give them back the keys,
And say goodbye.
clean the place out, don't do any damage, and nobody owes anybody anything. So
I
that's
know.
what we agreed to do. And it's still sitting there, and he's got nothing. So he really, to me, he made a bad move, because
I think so too.
you know, I've got government funding that the Small Business Association gave me. So when this ends, I have money that I could have given him to say, okay, here's a settlement, take this, now let's get going. He's sitting there with nothing now. So what can I say?
Have you heard anything? I mean, I'm hearing possibly this summer, most likely next summer, before we even think about getting, I'm not even gonna say getting back to normal, because it's never gonna be normal again.
People are talking about a lot of possibilities of things, but I think what people do nowadays, they take bits of information and then they make up their own story to it. That is not at all what's going on. What's going on is everyone's reading these articles where they're going to open up Yankee Stadium and they're going to open up Citi Field and they're going to have basketball games at 10 to 25% capacity.
What good is that?
So, right, but if you've got a 50,000 seat place,
Right.
and you got 25% capacity, you're looking at 12,500 people. But look at the cost of doing it. They have to have set up outside the stadium. They have to have set up a testing, a rapid testing. Everyone that comes in has to get rapid tested, and you can't go inside the venue until your test comes up negative. So now let's take Blackthorn as an example. Blackthorn had a legal capacity of 200. So now they say you can only do 25% capacity. So that's 50 people. So now take my staff, that's 7 people. So now we're down to 43. So let's say we have 5 bands playing, 4 members for each band.
That's 20.
That's 20.
And that's 23 people.
So now I can only allow 23 people in the place, and I have to have a testing thing outside that I have to pay for.
Right.
I have to have a doctor and a nurse there to do testing. It can't be done. So
That's
there's
crazy.
a lot of people jumping up and down saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I'm like, listen, you better make sure you know what you're talking about, because this is what the rules are. And no one in a small venue can afford to do that. So the Yankees can afford to do that because the Yankees are billionaires, and the Mets are billionaires, and the New York Giants and the Knicks and Madison Square Garden. These are all billionaires, and they need to keep their name out there so they can afford to do this stuff. The little guys like Lucky 13 and St. Vitus and Blackthorn and some of these other places, no way in the world could they do that.
No. And so what do you think, Nick? What are your plans going forward? What do you think? You're just going to sit it out and wait to see what happens?
Because,
Or
you
you
know
have a plan
why?
in place?
As I said, I'm pretty on top of what's going on. The government has been giving out a lot of money. I'm right now on the list for 2 more grants to get substantial funding. And I've gotten all the funding, and it's all sitting waiting. I am not going to utilize that money until I know that it's not going to go to waste. See, I could have went to my landlord and said, you know what? Here's $60,000. Let's see what happens. And
But you have no income coming in. You're just paying them $60,000 and there's nothing going on. It's
Right.
an empty space.
So I'd rather wait it out,
Right.
and when everything is ready to go.
Right.
And
So now, Nick, that funding, is it in a form of a loan, or it's a grant that you don't have to pay back?
Partial loan, partial grant, but the new 2 of them that are coming out. I was actually on a Zoom seminar today for 2 hours. I'm sure you've seen Chuck Schumer with the Save Our Stages.
Yes.
All right. Anyone who's got a bar or a club that does live music that isn't signed up for this is not being smart, because I am on top of this, and it's very complicated. And I'll explain to you why it's complicated. This is good for people if you care for them to know. Last year when they did the money, a lot of people got money that shouldn't have got it because they faked it. These guys are like, nope, you're not doing it this time. So like, let's say you have a little cafe, and in the corner you get 2 guys with a guitar and they're over there playing. You're not getting money.
Right. Right.
This is for live venues. Like, to prove that you're a live venue, what they're gonna make you go through to prove you're a live venue, we gotta jump through hoops of
You got to
fire.
jump through hoops.
But I've been listening to all the seminars. I've actually listened to about 5 different seminars. They tell us what we need. I've got all my paperwork. You have to prove that you sold tickets. So I've gone through Ticketfly and all the places where I sold tickets, and I'm getting all the receipts of what I sold. I have to give them plans of what Blackthorn looked like to prove that it had a stage and a PA system and lights. You have to give them all that stuff so that they don't think you're, bullshitting them.
Right. Because they're smarter this time around.
Right. And according to what they said, and according to what I have and what I've done, I'm in the first round of getting money. So when the money's going to come in 4 rounds based on qualification. My qualification is in the first round, 100%, no doubt about it. And so is a lot of these other clubs. So if these owners are not hip and they don't get with it, they're not going to get money. And that's free money. That is a grant.
Right.
You can get up to $1 million if you
So-
can prove.
Right.
So a lot of these other guys, if anyone's listening,
Well, there's going to be plenty of people listening.
it's called the Shuttered Venue Grant. You can go
Shuttered
online,
venue grant.
Shuttered Venue Grant. Anyone that legitimately owns a venue. As a matter of fact, if you're a promoter and you don't own a venue, you can still do it as long as you can prove. Now, if you worked off the books, like some people I know, they can't prove anything, they're not going to get anything.
Right. So all has to be legit.
It's got
Pay stubs, everything.
and you can get a lot of money.
Yeah.
So anyone out there that's going like, man, what am I going to do?
Right. So I hear you. So the last thing we're going to go over is, what are the plans for Blackthorn? Is it going to, the location you're at now is done? You're not going back there? It's going to be a new location?
I don't know. I mean, right now he's still empty. He's got nothing.
I pass it every day. I work right there. I pass it every day. And I'm sick to my stomach seeing it shuttered like that.
I know that they cleaned up the front and I saw that they did something with the gates, but I don't think that, I mean, who's going to rent it now? You can't open up now
Yeah.
unless somebody buys the property and knocks it down and builds apartments or something.
Well, that's what they're doing all on Queens Boulevard over there.
Yes.
But all right, Nick, I mean, so I got one last question for you. Well, we're not going to say if, when you open, do you have a band in mind that you'd like to book in there to reopen?
I know we talked about this the other night. It's really hard to say.
I'm going to get it out of you, Nick. I want to get it out of you. Come on.
I don't know, because I don't know what people are doing. The touring business, you got to remember something. To tour, you need to make money. If the whole country's not open, how is a band going to tour and be able to afford to tour? So I got to kind of see what's going on, who's available, who's doing this, who's doing that, and see what we could do. Now, keep in mind that Blackthorn was also famous for doing all the big New York hardcore bands.
Yeah.
It's Sick of It All, Agnostic Front, Murphy's Law. We did all our biggest shows, by the way, were all the hardcore bands.
That's a diehard fan base.
Yes, and I know all those guys since they all played for me at Bond Street Cafe when we were all much younger. So maybe that's a direction to go. Like if I came back with Blackthorn, maybe I go to Sick of It All, or I go to Agnostic Front, or I go to Madball and some of these bands and say, listen, we're back. The pandemic's over. Let's do a big show with Blackthorn.
Great. Well, one other thing I want to point out to you is you're selling these T-shirts, which I'm rocking one right now, the Blackthorn 51 T-shirts. You want to give out, there you go. That's the same one I got, but that's in black. You can go on the Blackthorn 51 Facebook page, and what you're doing is you're supporting Nikki's cause to get Blackthorn reopened. If you're a fan, you buy a T-shirt, you'll help them out.
It's also a great looking shirt. So
oh yeah, look at this thing. I'm rocking this sucker.
even if you're not a fan.
Yeah, I'm rocking that Blackthorn
Oh,
shirt.
man, looking good.
Yeah. But Nikki, I want to thank you for coming on. You know what I want to do too? I want to point out one other thing. Since we're talking about live music, we're also talking about bars and restaurants. And a couple of the bars and restaurants I just want to point out that I was associated with my band that are just reopening now because the mayor just had the indoor dining open, if you even want to call it, even though it's limited capacity. Some of the places I want you guys to visit are the Village Green in Whitestone. Christina's there. She's a great girl. She sat it out and she held her head up high, and she's back in business. Another place is Your Man's in Glendale. We played there. Yeah, we played there. That's a great place. Jimmy helped us out with my band, and we got to help them out. And another one is Connolly's Corner in Maspeth, Queens, and on Grand Avenue. Those are three great places besides Blackthorn, who I'll always support. Those are three places I want to point out. We got to support them. We got to get these people. You got to understand, they didn't have any money coming in for months at a time, and places are dropping like flies. So if whatever we can do to support the live music scene, the bar scene, the restaurant scene, we really have to help these places out. And I want to thank the legendary Nicky Camp for joining us today. He had some great stories. But hopefully there's a silver lining, Nick, and we'll get back open. And maybe the next time you come on the show, we're gonna have the grand reopening of Blackthorn 51.
Absolutely, Ralph. Thank you for having me.
Anytime, bro. You're welcome anytime. Remember, Blackthorn 51 fan page on Facebook. And like I said, Nicky, thank you very much for coming.
All right, Ralph.
Take care, Noe.
All right, buddy.